Okay, so today we're going to be talking about interviewing in academia. This will be for academic positions at a university level or college level, or for faculty positions. I know some of you are interested in teaching in school districts if you're getting your master's or PhD to be teachers. This won't be focused towards that specifically, but you can contact me and we can definitely set something up. If you're off campus or online or distant, you can certainly email me and I can give you some strategies as well for teaching positions. Okay, so interviewing in academia, the key is to have effective preparation, and that's honestly going to be for any position, whether it is academic or for a teacher for a school district. You want to make sure that you know about yourself and how to talk about yourself in a positive light. Talk about your understanding of the institution or school district. And to really just make sure that you're convincing the hiring committee that you are the person for the job. Those are I think, 3 keys in making sure that you have the effective preparation. The big thing is making sure that you do your research, that you do your homework, because you want to make sure that you know about them, about the institution, about their college or department, and about their faculty member. What kind of courses do they offer? So are you interested in teaching? Well, you need to know what kind of courses they offer and what potential courses that you may be teaching as well. You want to consult some of these sources as well. So institution department website, it's always something that you want to look at. Usually you can find what you need to know. The faculty advisor and other mentors, so who are going to be your colleagues, who you're going to be working with. And then friends, family, and acquaintances. Maybe you know somebody that works at that institution. And so first-hand experience is usually the best type of information to gather. And then any university or online college newspaper. But I would say the first-hand as well as the department website is where you're going to find the most of your information that you'll need for the interview. Make sure that you prepare to talk about yourself. Your current research, you will have to explain this in some manner, whether it's just by talking to somebody in a conversation, or if you have to give a presentation to a group of individuals. So you want to have 2 synopses from maybe people that are experts, so those faculty members that are expert in those areas, as well as the non-experts. And so that would maybe be some of the staff members that people bring in, or maybe even students if you're doing if you're going for faculty and you have students in on your session, then you want to make sure that you can relate to them as well. It's very important. The impact of your work, so how is what you're researching, how is what you've been doing and what you can do at the university or college going to be impactful for them. In teaching, if you are maybe not going to a Research One institution and you want to really focus on teaching, you want to go to maybe more of a liberal arts school, focus a lot on teaching, and that will be the difference. So Research One schools, you focus on your research more. The liberal arts schools, you'll focus on your teaching more. So the general philosophy, your classroom methods, those are going to be key. You're incorporating, how do you incorporate technology into the classroom? It happens all the time now. It's just the way that we're going, and so you have to be able to incorporate technology into your classroom. What you can teach, maybe what you'd like to teach. Also know what you have previously taught and how that can go along with what you would like to teach in the future. And how you would teach in introductory courses, because I think that anybody starting off at the institution, maybe if it's your first position, you might have to do some of those introductory courses. So how you would do that as well is very important. Continuing on is future research plans. So what are your future research plans? If you're going to a Research One institution, you're going to have to make sure that you are doing research. And so what are those plans? Have some 5 to 10 year plans, but also talk about grant funding. It's very big at a Research One institution. Some faculty, or maybe the majority of faculty, do need to get all of their funding for their research. So even if it's not exactly planned out, have a pretty good general basis ready for, even if it's just preliminary, about what you would do, how you would do it, so you can tell them during that interview process. Just some helpful tips. I think this is the biggest one, and this is for anybody. Don't accept interviews just to practice for like the one you really want. I think that if you want to go there, but maybe it's not your top choice, that's okay. That's not practice. But just applying to anything to making sure that you can get the practice, that's not very ethical. So just kind of think about that. I mean, you're wasting your time, they're wasting their time, and just kind of think about, you know, would you want someone to do that to you? Make sure you do your homework, so what we just talked about, making sure that you do your research, talk to different people, so you have as much information as you possibly can, and how you can relate that information that you've gathered into what you would like to do with their institution or school district. Make sure you always bring sample questions, or not sample questions, I'm sorry. Make sure you always know some questions that they're going to ask you. So there is a sample document that you have right now, and that should be uploaded to the website for those distance and online students, that has some sample questions for you. My office can certainly help you with those questions as far as how you should answer them. Your faculty and your advisors would definitely be able to help you with that as well. They do change that if you want to be a school teacher, and so those are on the Career Services website. The link is at the end of this slide. So those will vary actually quite a bit. But make sure you practice whatever you do, just make sure you practice. Make sure you bring copies of your CV or your resume. If you have a resume, no more than 2 pages. A CV can go up to as many as you need, but you need to have at least 2 pages for your CV. But make sure it's never front and back, so never double-sided. And then make sure it's always on resume paper as well. Dress appropriately. I always say that a suit's the best way to go, and it usually is. So, but I always do tell students, you know, if you don't have a suit, you don't have the funds to do that, make sure you wear nice slacks and a nice blouse, or for men, nice slacks and maybe a jacket if you have a nice jacket, or a button-down shirt with a tie. Okay? And always prepare questions to ask interviewers. It's actually a red flag if you don't have questions. So make sure that you have questions and not just yes/no type of answer questions. Something that you're actually interested in, something that can show that you've done your homework. So again, regardless of where you're going, you can do your homework and find a question in that manner. All right, so a little bit more tips. Don't volunteer negative information. I think that I work with students that want to be teachers, and I hear a lot of students say, you know, I really want to be a teacher because, you know, this teacher was just not very effective. They weren't very good. And so, whereas that actually may be the truth, you know, how do you say that in a nice way? And so we can kind of work through that. You always want to make sure that you're always positive, that your words that you use are always positive. So nothing negative. Make sure that you are able to talk to students. So this is, again, going back to that, if you have a large presentation and students are there, make sure you know how to relate to them, because that's who your audience will be on a day-to-day basis. So if you want to be a faculty member and teach college students, but they don't like you during your presentation, you can't relate to them, it's going to be fairly difficult for that for other faculty to give that a recommendation to the dean for hire. Exercise good manners, display collegiality. That's always a must anywhere you go. You know, I use the example when I talk to teachers, you know, administrative assistants, that frontline staff, even janitors. Be nice to every single person you come in contact with, because you never know what kind of pull that they might have in a district or in an institution, okay? Follow-up thank you letters or emails, this is a must. I usually say the best time to do thank you letters is within 24 to 48 hours. If you're going, excuse me, out of city or out of state, national searches for like faculty or high academic positions will usually be national searches. So if you're going out of state, make sure you take those thank you notes with you so you can just send them off there. Maybe if you go back to the hotel or before you leave, whatever it may be, then you can just send them off at that time. Handwritten notes are very nice. I get that more, I think, at the teacher level as well as the academic non-faculty level, and then I think the faculty can certainly do that as well, but from my understanding and talking to other individuals, it's more of either an email or it's going to be a typed letter that is sent. There are samples on the Career Services website for those thank you letters, but you always want to make sure that you do that within the 24 to 48 hours. The only time that I'd really say an email should be sent over a letter is if you know that turnaround is going to be really quick. So if you go in for an interview and they say, you know, and this was on Wednesday, we're going to know the decision by Friday or Monday, that's a really quick turnaround time. So the chances are, especially if you're out of state, the chances of that letter, you know, getting to them via snail mail by the time they make that decision is probably pretty slim. So that's at the time that I would write an email. So do you guys have any questions so far about anything? No? Okay. Okay, so this is primarily then for the faculty interview. Most universities, all that I've known, will have a search committee. There'll be several different people comprised of that. They're going to review your credentials. They may contact your references, excuse me. And I've actually seen this happen more and more lately, where they contact the references first. So don't be alarmed if that happens. I used to always know for them to contact the references when they wanted to make the offer. So that's really the difference between faculty and I think staff. And they then rank their applicants based on all that information, based on your credentials and based on what your references say about you. The applicants will be selected for the interviews or placed on hold based on those rankings, so just kind of depends on where you rank. They may contact their number one. They no longer say that they're interested, so then they just kind of go down their ranking list. Generally, there's going to be 3 to 5 applicants for, well, typically it's more for, I think, like the non-faculty, but I would say maybe like 2 to 3 for the faculty, even though this says 3 to 5. I think it's just more reasonable to expect there's going to be probably 2 to 3 faculty invited back. And then after the interviews, they share their opinions about the candidates, and then they vote. Has anybody ever sat in on a committee or seen a presentation for a faculty member or a staff member? You have. If you haven't done that and you're able to do that, I would definitely just kind of see how the process goes, because you know that you're going to have to be in their shoes one day. So, you know, what does that look like? If you're able to do that, I would definitely do it. The interview process for that faculty member will usually last 1 to 3 days. And so, you know, thinking they usually will pay for that travel as well. So make sure you keep that in mind. That's actually something to really keep in mind. It's going to consist of the one-on-one. There's going to be small groups. There may be the group interviews. Again, it's going to be all day. So you're going to be going to breakfast, lunch, possibly dinner as well. So make sure you know your etiquette. If you're a little shaky on the etiquette, you can always come and see me. There's definitely things on the Education Career Services website as well about proper dining etiquette. So kind of keep that in mind. And then you'll also probably have to have the professional presentation. So you want to make sure it's going to be, they'll probably give you a pretty wide range, maybe something broad that they want you to talk about. And you want to make sure you have certain aspects. So the topic of your choice, it's going to usually be about an hour. And then just you want to make sure you pick up your most important components. So that's going to be then about your research, maybe, or about your teaching, you know, about maybe some of your methods, things like that. But then you want to incorporate not only the institution and what you can do, but then your past work as well. You know, I've had somebody ask me, you know, well, how many slides should I keep it to? And it really depends on you. I've been in some where I've had, you know, there have been 25 slides, they lasted an hour. I've been in another that literally had 76 slides, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, we're never going to get through this. And they did, and they got through it, and it's actually done really well. So it just depends on you, your speech rate, the things you want to go through. So definitely up to you. But you will be also going to probably some social events. They will probably give you a tour of campus. If they don't, that's something I would ask for before you arrive. Just say, you know, I'm very interested in learning as much about the campus as I possibly can. I've never visited here before. Would it be possible to have a campus tour? I think that's more than okay, and I think it actually shows them that you are very interested in learning about their campus and their community and their students. And you may also be asked about anything relevant to the position throughout any of these events. But I mean, if you wind up getting a tour of campus or the community, or you maybe go to a social event, you could easily pull something about that, you know, maybe that's like day 1, day 2, you could pull something about it into conversation. So I think it'd be very beneficial for you to have that. Okay, so preparing for the presentation, you want to make sure that you outline your topic, develop your notes and your slides. Again, that can vary based on your speech rate and what you want to talk about. You want to make sure that you do create a handout for the audience so they have something to look at, to take notes on, to keep with them. You want to make sure that you practice your presentation with your current colleagues or your peers, anybody that can give you good critical advice. Prepare your questions that you may be asked for. So you may have students in there, faculties, directors, deans. I mean, you're going to have people asking you questions. So just make sure that you're prepared on every level. So what would a student maybe say? What would a faculty member maybe say? And then make sure that your presentation just really expresses your interest and shows that you are genuinely there for the right reasons and for the right position. Okay, so some of the information to share, again, this is a little bit of a repeat, but you want to make sure you do bring those extra copies of your CV and your recent publications. That is very important, especially if you are going to that Research One institution. Your course syllabi, if you've ever taught before, you want to make sure that you bring that as well or provide that to them beforehand, because you never know where conversations might lead or what information you might need at some point. You can definitely keep it in your Padfolio the entire time you're there. And then the list of your research needs. So if you are going to a Research One institution, they're going to expect that from you. But you want to make sure that they know this is your research, this is what you want, this is what you anticipate to do. Because if they can't meet your needs, then that's a decision that you need to make as well. So they're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them. And we'll talk about it just in a second. It's really when you go to an institution, you want to be a faculty member or a staff member, you definitely are choosing them, because if you don't click well with them, how would you click with them every day? You know what I mean? So would your work environment be good? So try to treat it, I mean, it is an interview, don't get me wrong, but try to treat it as a conversation amongst colleagues, because that's really what it is and what it should be. So the information to obtain, promotion and tenure guidelines, definitely want to make sure you have that. The IRB guidelines, funding options, so that goes right along with that question that you just asked. So those funding options, the examples of the course syllabi that they would like you to teach, that's going to be very important, because if you get a course that they are going to expect you to teach and you're like, oh, I don't know if I really want to do that. So that's something that you have to look at. Your committee assignments, advising policy, clinic handbook if you're going into something that has clinicals, and then benefit package from human resources. And the reason to get all of this is to see if it fits you, if you have a family, to see if it fits your family needs, and then to also compare, because that's when negotiations might be able to come in as well. I mean, you can't change the benefits package or little things like, or not little things, but the big things like that. But maybe about the courses, or maybe it could have something to do with pay, or maybe it has something to do with something else. This institution's offering me this, your institution's offering me this. Could you give me, I don't know, maybe a lesser load or something like that? So those are some things that you can look into on the negotiation part. Okay, so the evaluation, and you want to make sure that you evaluate. So the whole time that you're doing this, like I said, it's an interview for them, for you, but then it's also an interview interviewing them. Are you going to be compatible? Do you have similar interests and values? Will you relate to the others? And will it be enjoyable? And those are things that you really need to think about. I think whenever a lot of people really need to get a job, maybe they're just like grasping at anything, and I think it's very typical for that to happen to people. They'll just take whatever they can get. Everything just always depends on your situation. So I mean, if you're in a position and you're trying to get out of it, I mean, that's something that's completely different. But if you're not in a position and you just have to have something, these still matter, but you need to rate how much they still matter. So it's always going to be different based on somebody else's experience, but I would say making sure that those 4 are answered, and usually go with your gut feeling. I mean, I think that's usually a good feeling to go with. So you'll know, I think, either way if you're a good fit while you're in the interviews or not. People usually have that good instinct. So make sure you listen to it. Negotiation, here's going to be the major areas, kind of similar to what we just talked about. So your salary, academic rank, your teaching responsibilities, and then those items related to your research. And I think along the way we kind of pointed out maybe little things about that, but those are going to be the three major areas of negotiation. I think one of the things that I've helped, or that I've seen with another student, and that I've helped somebody with, was the salary. And so this individual was offered a certain position with a certain salary, and she wanted it to be a little bit higher. And so she was able to go back and say, I'm ABD right now, but as soon as I finish, as soon as this degree is conferred, can I have this much? And they said yes. So different things like that you can negotiate. And they usually will lowball you. So the thing to do, some of my advice to do is actually see what other faculty are making in that area. If you're going to a public institution, that's usually going to be public information, so you can see and how you're going to be compared. Yeah, so definitely something to think about. Yeah.
So I think there are different kind of offer in terms of salary.
Mm-hmm.
Some university offer some kind of range, like we can go from here. Some might ask you how much you want. Some might offer you a number.
Mm-hmm.
So what should be a good way? For example, if they ask you a number,
yeah,
where should we find that information?
That's a really good question. I usually have that happen on the application. From just my experience, I've usually seen, how much are you looking for? I actually always leave that blank. And I know I've talked to other people and they leave that blank. And the reason for that is because they may say no to you based on the fact that maybe it's too high, or they may say yes, come in, because maybe you're so low. So if you're able to leave that blank, you can leave it blank, or you can, if you can do a range, you can do a very large range. Universities do large ranges, don't they? So maybe you can do a large range. But here, I'm just going to use the university for example. Like here, for staff positions are usually a fairly good range, but for faculty there's not going to be a range there, and so that's when I think looking at other institutions and that institution as well, and just looking to see what those similar pay scales are, what they're getting paid, would be the best bet.
So how about if, let's say, they offer 60,000
Mm-hmm.
per year, right? So what should we react in that situation?
So you will usually get the offer via phone. They'll say, okay, we want to offer you this position. These are going to be, the requirements. We want to offer you $60,000. My advice is to never accept at the time that they offer, even for school district, because you always need time to think about, just say, I'd like to take some time to think about this. Thank you very much for the offer. I really appreciate it. Let me get back to you tomorrow or within 48 hours. Just depending on when they offer. If they offer on a Friday, tell them you let them know on a Monday. That's whenever you. So when I have a student, maybe will contact me at that time, and we kind of talk about the negotiations, or you sit down, you talk with people who are close to you, or you sit down and crunch your numbers on what you want. And so if you want more than that, they're usually expecting for you to come back with something, and that's the other reason why you don't go say yes automatically, because they are going to probably lowball you. But what you can do is you can just go back to them on that Monday and say, I was thinking that with my experience, with this that I'll be having, you make the list of the different things and why you feel that you deserve a higher salary. And let's say you were thinking more along the lines of like 63, you would say, I was thinking 65. And then that's when they kind of go back and forth, and maybe you would meet in the middle at 63.
So, what I concern is how much higher should we?
How much higher? I think you might be surprised about how much I've heard, but I think realistically, within 5,000. Realistically, I've seen some jumps of 7 or 9, but that is not typical at all whatsoever. But I would say within the 5,000 range. Yeah, that's a good question. Very good. Okay, so that's really everything. We did focus a lot on that faculty interview because this is for interviewing in academia. Again, like I've said, if anybody has questions about interviewing for a school district, just certainly contact me and we can set that up. Or I can just give you the links for different things for teacher type interviews.